Hey, I'm Pops, and yes, a weird throwback Thursday? Maybe, but let me explain why. Octopussy, 1983, 40 years ago, guys. 40 years ago, Roger Moore was 007, and you know what this was? This was my introduction to James Bond. This was my first go to the theater, see James Bond. Couldn't believe my mom was taking me. I couldn't believe it. It was like most of the time in 82 into 83, it was going to be a dollar movie, or it would be you can go with your friends, I'll drop you off, those kinds of things, right? Just not things that she was interested in. But 007, mom was down for 007 time. So my first Bond was seeing Octopussy in the theater. And let me tell you, the movie is one of those you have to give me this category of you love it for reasons that are beyond just the reasons of the movie, right? You can love a movie, but you need to acknowledge that this isn't even among the best Roger Moore 007 movies. This is in the bottom of those, let alone the overall list of James Bond movies. I'm not naive trying to say this is this great movie. That's why it's a throwback Thursday. No, it's a throwback because it means so much to me. I couldn't believe this movie's 40 years. I couldn't believe it was the anniversary of this. And I had such a fun time rewatching this movie because it doesn't take itself that serious, right? Um, the opening sequence, and I pulled the trailer up so we can kind of get a little bit of my love from where some of the memories come from. I'm trying to find the shot because this movie is there. It is. Here's the shot. It's him in this ridiculous fold out airplane thing. Like, this was the best scene. I couldn't believe it when this happened. And watching this for the first time, because you don't exactly know what's happening, but you know it's happening. And then when you see this movie and it kind of plays out, I was just so hooked. I loved it. Um, Total Cold War propaganda stuff, right? Um, it's basically centers around this, Fabergé egg, and MI9, one of the other M's gets killed. The double O gets killed. 009, and the Soviets are basically General Orlov. By the way, Steve Burkhoff plays Victor in Beverly Hills Cop. He went on to Rambo 2, right? Um, he's just so much fun as a villain, especially a Soviet villain. He's working with this plan and this scheme to invade Europe, and he's working with like the jewel smuggling ring. So you have like the auction stuff, and he has to go to India. Most of the movie takes place there, and all of these kinds of things, very tongue in cheek. And it absolutely gets silly at times. The whole jungle sequence, totally silly and ridiculous. I love it. I had a great time. So, um, I really I have to be honest. I love the location type stuff, all the beautiful lady type stuff. Of course, is all very fun with him. That's actually late in the movie when he gets with Octopussy. Which, by the way, when you're 12 years old, 13 years old, it would have been 12. I didn't turn 13 till July. It's a funny word. You guys, think on that. Um, oh yeah, yeah. So this was the villain. He has like the spinny saw or whatever, and she's got like a trained assassin girls in this fight scene at the end, which literally looks like really bad sets and Cirque du Soleil performers and stuff. Like, just so cheesy and so terrible. And I'm like, this is my first Bond movie. Can you imagine being a 12-year-old kid and your first James Bond movie, and it's full of, I mean, not just like a couple of Bond girls. There are women running around in bikinis doing somersaults and action sequences everywhere. Look at this. There's a dude. Look at this. Bond is straddling the rail and going down it to shoot bad guys. It's so ridiculous and so fun. The exotic elements and stuff, it was fun. The little chase sequence is ridiculous because he does this jump. It's terrible. Here's the part of that jungle sequence, which is absurd with this. He tells the tiger to sit. So silly. So silly. And of course, in the next sequence, he sneaks into the island in like a fake gator head. Um, oh yeah, so the train sequence. Okay. So having your tire shot out and then it not blowing, wrecking the car, but then having it go on train tracks for so long, and then it's just, and then it leaps, it goes into the lake. It's Octopussy is not a great James Bond movie, but it is a fun James Bond introduction. And that's what it was for me. I don't know which ones you like or don't like. Um, there are tons of moments that are silly. Like, so when Bond sneaks out of the Khan's fortress area, he does it in like a body bag, and then he sits up and you hear him go boo. And in that jungle sequence when he's on a vine, you hear a Tarzan thing. There's just so many silly, terrible, cringy elements in some ways. But like I said, when I watched this movie, because it did all of those fun things, it may be one of the reasons that I love James Bond stuff so much, because it didn't come across as being like stuffy or serious, or it just, I was really hooked on how fun everything was. It made me want to watch more. And in the age of VHS, I was hooked. And you can imagine my face as a person that came into James Bond with Octopussy when I saw Goldfinger for the first time. Mhm. Mhm. Imagine my face. Yeah, think about it. You'll get it. A couple of you right now are getting it. I understand. You'll throw it in the chat. I hear you. I see you. I know what you're thinking. Love James Bond. I don't have any ill will over saying, "Oh, Roger Moore's not my James Bond because of Connery," or I mean, Connery is the best. Connery is the goat. Goldfinger and Thunderball are probably my two favorites, but there are tons of others that I love just as much. I actually love Casino Royale. Um, I have to be honest, I really, really enjoy Pierce Brosnan, even though a couple of them are really pretty bad. Die Another Day, for instance, right? Um, so yeah, there are tons of things that are really not great. Um, as I rewatched it, like when he uses the acid from the pen to do the bar, and then he bends the bar. I'm like, when the acid wouldn't make the bar bend, why would it just bend? Just like what? My brain still has those problems. The watch is tracking the egg. They have a tracker in the little egg, and he's tracking it, and it's just going beep, beep, beep. The whole, like, no one would hear it beeping, like nobody. So, that's contrasted with like when James knocks out these there's twin knife throwers, and he knocks one out and sticks it in a cannon. He hits it with a cannon, then sticks the body in there. I'm like, that makes me laugh. Oh, and at the very end, when they finally win, and there's all these girls, and they go up to Q, because Q's actually in the field. This is the very first time I think Q is in the field. And they're like, "Oh no, the ladies, there's no time for that." Well, later perhaps. And I'm like, "Oh, that's so fun. That is fun." And I think that's why this movie was a great introduction for me, because it had enough of everything happening. And I got to be honest, as bad as I can diss on Octopussy and probably most of the bad James Bond movies, let's be honest, they have more story and elements to like than most of the modern movies. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but Octopussy has a better story arc and details in their script than some of this other stuff that just meanders around and never goes anywhere. It's at least pretty much buttoned up. So, anyway, that's my Throwback Thursday choice. Sorry it was much more self indulgent, shall we say, than a normal Throwback Thursday, which is like, hey, go watch this. This is more like live vicariously through Pops. But I will tell you this, I would love to hear movies that are like this, where you're willing to admit, you're being honest now. It's not a very good movie, but I love it because I saw it with my mom. I saw it when I was young. It's the reason I got into this or that or whatever. It's okay. I love that because I think that's part of what makes us fans and humans and people is, you know, that dynamic element of why this media touches and connects to us, right? This movie made me It made me want to be James Bond. It made me want to be like James Bond. It made me like ladies. It made me laugh. It made me enjoy chase scenes, fight scenes, and the villain. I gotta be honest, the bodyguard, the Indian bodyguard, I don't remember his name. I wrote it down somewhere. Um, was kind of menacing. I kind of like this guy. I know they had the other guy. He like throws like the circular saw thing and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't care. Like the octopus, that fight scene. He throws the guy through the aquarium. Of course, octopus. He has an octopus, and it jumps on the guy's face. And there's a shot of him on the floor, and it's going. I'm like, this thing would be dead. This thing can't live outside the water like this. Like it's. I just laugh. I have to be honest. I don't get all bent out of shape, and I also don't. I'm not embarrassed. Like, oh, I like this movie. I'm like, I like this movie because when I saw it, who I saw it with, why I saw it, when I, all of that. It's fun to reflect and enjoy it for what it is. And that's what this movie is for me. I'd love to hear more about what it is for you on this Throwback Thursday. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah. Right